All right. Hi, I have the pleasure of talking with Anne McCarthy. Anne, where are you located this afternoon?
I'm in Preston, Lancashire, in the United Kingdom, and it's a
Got
little
it.
bit chilly.
So, Anne, maybe you can take a minute and tell us a little bit about your career, summarize your career, and a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds good, thank you. So I am an HR professional of some many years now, more than I want to admit to. I don't know where the time went. And I worked in two of the UK's biggest companies, British Aerospace or BAE Systems first, and then Royal Mail, where I stayed for 25 years and did all kinds of big jobs, really. The common theme being at the heart of change and transformation. Royal Mail is one of Britain's best loved brands, and it provides the postal service really for the United Kingdom.
And just so that we can appreciate all your brilliance, give us two or three different roles that you had over that period of time.
Really, I did big HR director roles. For example, in London, when we were leading a big transformation of the capital, which was the least productive area of Royal Mail and also the most militant in terms of trade unions. So a bit tricky, pot of gold under the rainbow there, but a bit tricky to get at because of very complex industrial relations, leadership issues. That was a really good job, really loved it. And then some more roles, for example, nationally, leading the delivery transformation from a people point of view, completely changing every aspect of the way that mail was delivered. So really changed every aspect of a post person's daily routine, which is where I started to appreciate that when you're leading change, it's not just about teaching people the new, but it's the unlearning as well, how you have to appreciate that letting go of routines that have probably become habitual is a really tricky business. So however brilliant your design is, the implementation can be tricky. And I finished, my last role with Royal Mail was the Group Learning and Development Director, which was a magical role, again, really at the heart of privatisation of the Royal Mail, looking at all the skills shift that came with becoming a newly privatised business, despite the 500 years of history that had gone before it. So really thinking about how you shift behaviours to a much more commercial mindset. So that was good too.
What, if we phrase this or couch it in business transformation, what for you was the one high point as you think of really making massive change and being successful at it? What's the kind of the one for you memory high point for you as you look back at your career?
I really think that delivery transformation was really magical. It's hard to pick one because I was really fortunate in Royal Mail to be given so many opportunities to play out with change on a really big scale, but the delivery transformation was really, really cool because.
And what was it about that?
When I walked into it, it was in a real mess. So this was a classic moment where we'd identified with lean-informed work, how. Can I just rewind a little bit here? Let me go back to the beginning. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
So really, this delivery transformation came about for two reasons. One was that the type of mail that Royal Mail was handling had changed dramatically, a massive decline in the number of letters, and because of, in the UK, there's a love of online shopping, it meant that there was a growth in the number of parcels that we were carrying. So the mix of mail had changed completely. And that meant that the methods with which people were delivering the mail weren't appropriate because they were once carrying 2D letter items and now they were big volume, big clunky parcels that they were carrying. So every aspect of the person's work had to change. The second reason was because there was a big delta between the most productive place and the least productive place. So they put all of this together, and with some lean informed practice, they looked at the work first, which is cool, right? Yeah, they really looked at the work and not the people, and they designed a whole new set of working methods. When I got involved, I was called in because it was a disaster, a real disaster. And what we found was that they, in implementation, had failed to properly engage with people. The leaders in the units weren't confident because they didn't really understand how their operation would work anymore. And I think their leadership power previously had come from knowing how every job worked. So we pressed pause, of course, and we, I think, designed an amazing learning and engagement program. We reviewed the organisation design work of what had happened, but actually there was nothing really wrong with that. It was really a good methodology for delivering the mail. That was cool. It's just that nobody understood it or knew how to interact with it. So we took people step by step through the big picture. Why does change need to happen at all? We put in a program for leaders to become confident in terms of the change journey that they were going to lead, not just the know-how of the production method, but also how might people react to this, and how do you get them on board, and how do you stay confident in your leadership job as you go through this transformation. And we designed really cool learning mats for postmen and women to really get an understanding of how their job was to be done, as well as lots of learning in the workplace, which I believe in an operational context is the best way to learn. Much more support. But what I was really proud of was a team of change agents from HR that we put on the ground to stay shoulder to shoulder with leaders and leaders of the operation and trade union leaders, so that they had a resource that was the change engine on the ground, that knew and could coach people and encourage people to keep giving things a go, but extract learning. And for me, learning is always about I once asked a group of operational managers, what have we learned this week? And there was a golden silence. And it took me a little while to understand that this group of operational managers, when I said, what did we learn last week, heard me saying, really, confess all your sins. What did you get really wrong last week? I'm a big believer that you should learn from your successes too, because repeating routines, especially when they're new, that are successful, is as important as really stopping and pausing when things wobble a bit to understand what course correction is needed. Both are crucial to a learning environment.
Let me. It's one of the things you're speaking to me, Anne. We talk about the three reasons transformations fail, of which the last one is implementation is done badly, based on patterns die hard, and you have to. And nothing changes till behavior changes, which is really what you're talking about here, right? Is the design was right? It was just the way it was being implemented. You needed to slow things down. Am I misunderstanding you, or am I getting it?
I think that's spot on. I just an illustration which might bring that point to light. Previously, for 500 years, a post person would pack their mail bag to a maximum of 15 kilograms. And if they had more than 15 kilograms of mail to deliver, they might try and tightly pack a second bag. But they were really motivated to go out with as few bags as possible and to pack them as densely as they could within the weight constraint so that it was safe. in this new method, they'd introduced loop deliveries, and you just packed a pouch to a particular loop of geography. Now, that might only be 1 kilogram, and you might be going out with 6 or 7 bags. And, you know, I observed on the street one day some people in Belfast repacking these pouches, and that's when I had a big aha moment that the old habit of maximising the mail in a pouch was something really hard to let go of. And so, you know, really simple visual display at the frame, which prompted them to you know, move on to a new bag was the solution.
Yeah, it's like pack for a loop, don't pack for a kilogram, right?
Yeah, you got it. But if you've been doing something for 25 years one way, and somebody comes along and says, here's a new way, even if you kind of hear that, you know, especially in boring, repetitive work, you are doing it habitually, aren't you? And yeah, in this case, you could be halfway down the street before you realised you've made an error. So that's the sort of level of detail that you need to get into for successful implementation. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Wow. Well, let's fascinating career, Anne, and I'm sure you're doing yourself not an injustice only having a few minutes to talk about it, but can you tell us when you first came into contact with On the Mark, and give us a sense of context and when that might be?
Yeah, so it was in fact 2004, believe it or not, in Royal Mail, and we just implemented the Ulrich 3-box model for HR. I was a business partner at that stage. And part of the quite brilliant learning and development program that was put in place by one of your own, Peter Turgis, to support the transformation to the new way of working was some products from On the Mark. And the two that I attended were consultancy and organisation design. Absolutely brilliant. I haven't just got this out because of this video, but I'm still carrying around today the prompt card from that course. It goes everywhere with me. As a learning director later in my career, I would absolutely dream on the return of investment of people doing a course in 2004 and still using it in 2019. That's an incredible, incredible return on investment for learning, and you always want to see applied learning. So for me, it really is. It was a game-changing intervention for me personally, and I know for many of my Royal Mail colleagues that also went through the programme. And that's because although it was hosted in theory, in translation, you left us with really practical tools that you could use and apply immediately that you walked out the door. Not only that, actually, you had to apply them because part of it was to bring a real program, a real life project into the course, so that you had to go back and put that into practice as part of the learning routine. But the fact that I'm still using that today is incredible, and some of the lenses that were in there. I know you're a great lover of the star, I am too, but there were other lenses such as Bark and others that I just think were incredible. And when you are dealing, as I have in my career, with complex people issues, it's really cool to have a lens to see the multi-dimensional ways of looking at an issue, and the fact that, you know, other people will have a different perspective on something, that some of these lenses help you to anticipate what that might be, and that will help you get through your change journey more smoothly, I think. So really cool. Thank
you for that, Anne. I'm having flashbacks as you're talking. It's amazing how quickly you can go back to periods of time. Any wisdoms, OTM wisdoms that stick with you over the years that you still find highly relevant? So what's one or two of them?
Well, I think there are two that are really, probably three actually, that are really important, two that came from consulting and one from design. The first is go slow to go fast. That's a really important thing. You know, especially if you work in a business that operates on a 24-hour production cycle, everybody thinks it's really important to get to the solution right now. But sometimes, of course, those sorts of knee-jerks can just get you into more problems. So the whole idea of going slow to go fast was really massively important. I think the second one, I don't know whether you'll remember this, but it came out in the consulting course loud and clear, was the presenting problem is not always the root cause problem. And the number of times that I have been in meetings with clients now, but also in Royal Mail, where I've heard people talking and energy gathering around the presenting problem, and I've been sat there thinking, no, I think this is a presenting problem and not a root cause. And I think you take away confidence having, you know, as an alumni of yours, to actually ask some questions that interrupt the dance in the room, where really the energy is going in one direction, but you fear that would be a mistake for the business. So I would say that one, and then of course the real one that you drum into everybody you meet, it's the work, not the people. So, you know.
Thank you for that.
Smelly pens and post-it notes. I think that's the other thing. Stationery is everything.
At least you didn't say anything about giving high fives. And what do you? You know, your idea, and you had some energy around an OTM alumni group. Just take a minute, and what are you envisioning as we kind of go down this road?
Well, as I've sort of said around, you really, the course forgive me, I'm stumbling on my words there. The course itself is absolutely brilliant, but for me personally, it's learning after you've started to use the tools in anger that's equally as important. And I think that, again, there are things that I do and continue to do that I know are successful, and then there are other things where maybe they've been successful before, but in a new context, suddenly, you know, you can have a wobble. So I would love to get together with alumni of yours and really stay fresh with the stuff, talk about experiences, good and bad, in a safe environment. And I think the other thing for all of us is the last decade particularly, pace of change has just gone really bonkers, hasn't it? I think we're all
it has
really trying to make sense of this new environment that we live in. There are massive political changes, there's shift in economic power towards the east, and you know, the world is definitely on some digital journey, and for change and organisation design practitioners, all of that is big picture context for how we do our work. I believe the context and tools and basis for which we do our work remains the same, and we need to remain confident about that. I just think the context is shifting, and if we have good conversation about what that means for us, then especially because I think that sometimes there is pressure to go faster, and sometimes you just got to have the courage to say, if you want to do it properly, you know, go slow to go fast, as it were. So
in closing, last question for you is, what are you doing now? And it'd be helpful to understand what you're doing now, and how maybe other OTM alumni and on the mark we can be of support to you.
Thank you. Well, I am excited because I have just set up Anne Mccarthy Associates. I am looking at work around change. I've got all of this experience of really good change programs, big transformation in the Royal Mail particularly, and I want to be able to take that to other people. I'm especially keen at work in blue-collar environments. I know a lot about that. Really also pretty skilled in the area of and change environments involving trade unions. And I really understand about and have learned from good experiences and bad around putting learning at the heart of change, so that you really respect the fact that people need time to adapt to their new circumstances, so that the productivity goals that we're all dreaming about and need in the economy can be realised. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. And how will people find you?
You can get in touch with Anne McCarthy3@mac.com.
Excellent. And we'll make sure we document that. Well, thank you for your time today, Anne. What an absolute delight it is to talk with you.
Thank you. You too.
I'm going to just stop us recording.